Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. I bear witness that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah Ta'ala, the one who has no partner and no similar, the one who has no length and no width and no depth and no perimeter, the one who's not a volume and is not in a place. And how could he be in a place when he existed before time and space? He created everything except himself, including you and your actions. Nothing occurs except by his will, both good and bad, he destined to happen. He speaks without sound, letter, or language, not Arabic, Hebrew, nor Korean. He's not light, he's not a spirit, he has nothing in common with human beings. He's not in the direction of up, down, right, left, front, nor back. And whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah is different than that. And I bear witness that our noble, unrivaled master, Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the slave of Allah and his final messenger to all the creations. May Allah unite us with him in paradise and grant us a drink from his basin. And may Allah increase us in patience, humility, knowledge, and comprehension, and help us to put our knowledge into practice and grant us all sincere intentions. We're continuing in the book, the Hadrami Introduction, Al-Muqaddimah, Al-Hadramiyya, written by the Allama Ba'fadl. May Allah have mercy on him. It's a beginner's text in Shafi'i fiqh. So we're studying the sacred law as it's understood by the Sayyids of the Shafi'i madhab. We've made it to page 14. Page 14, where we will begin talking about how one does the ghusl. So we talked last week about the things that necessitate a ghusl. What are the events that cause major hadath to come upon a person such that they are now obligated to perform a ghusl? And also, we mentioned death, which is a special case. In the case of someone dying, it's not the case that major hadath falls upon that dead person. Rather, it's just the case that the living are obligated to give him a ghusl as part of his funeral arrangements. So let's talk. We're on page 14, everyone. Page 14. Obligations of ghusl. So in this chapter, we're going to talk about exactly how a person performs the ghusl. And we're going to talk about what you're required to do. And we're going to talk about some of the things that are recommended to do. So let's get to it. The author, may Allah have mercy on him, said, the minimal wash is the intention to lift he says to lift the major ritual impurity. Now, in the Arabic text, the word that's used here is not major ritual impurity. The word that's used here is janaba. Okay? But you don't necessarily have to specify that janaba is the major hadath that you have. Okay? So what he's saying here is one obligatory aspect of ghusl is that you need to have the intention. Okay, there are two things you need to do for your ghusl to be valid. You need to have the intention and you need to wash your whole body. He's saying the intention needs to be specific. Okay, you need to specify that you're performing the act of ghusl. Okay, so you intend that it's a ghusl you're doing, not a wudu, for example, but it's a ghusl. And you need to specify why you're doing the ghusl. So you need to, in your intention, you need to indicate that you're doing it to fulfill an obligation or to enter a state of religious purity, okay, or to lift hadath. And if you want, you can specify precisely the hadath that you're lifting. So if you're in a state of janaba because you had sex or your sexual fluid came out, then you can specify you're performing ghusl to lift the janaba. Okay, but if your major ritual impurity is due to period blood, for example, then once your period was over you can make the intention that you're performing ghusl to lift the hadath of menstruation. Okay, all of these are possible intentions. If I were you, I would simply intend that you perform obligatory ghusl to lift the major hadath. He says, or, so he's giving another potential obligation, another potential intention here. He says, or the obligation of, he says washing, but when he says washing, he chose to translate the word ghusl as washing. And personally, I believe that most of us Muslims in the United States, we're familiar with the word ghusl. We don't need to translate it. We can just say the Arabic word ghusl. So another acceptable intention is for you to simply intend the obligation of ghusl, that you're making an obligatory ghusl. It says, or to lift the ritual impurity. Like if your intention is simply to lift hadath. All of these are valid intentions, okay? That's the first of the two obligatory aspects of ghusl. There are two integrals. There's two pillars of ghusl. There's two furud, two aspects of ghusl that you must do for your ghusl to be valid. The first one is the intention, and all these intentions we just mentioned are valid. Okay, it's not valid simply to intend to have purification. That's not valid. Okay, because purification could be from a number of things. Like you might have dirt on your body and you want to purify yourself from the dirt. Okay, if that's the case, the major hadath will not be lifted. Okay, a person might purify themselves just talking about, hygiene, cleanliness. Okay, those intentions are not valid as a ghusl. Okay, so if you want to intend that you're doing ghusl for the sake of purity, then you need to, in your intention, indicate that the purity you seek is religious purity. Purity from hadath or major hadath. Or you indicate that this ghusl is an obligation, because then it means that what you're intending is, in fact, this act of worship, which we call ghusl, and not some sort of, dunya thing like simply bathing. Then there's a semicolon. After the semicolon, he's going to mention the second of the two obligatory aspects of ghusl. He says, and to cover all the hair and skin with water. Okay, what he means here is that you use flowing water, which is pure and purifying. Okay, because we talked back in chapter 1 that the acts of purification require water that's pure and purifying. Okay, and we mentioned that the difference between washing and wiping is whether the water is flowing over the thing that you're washing, right? So for ghusl, you need to wash. That means that the purifying water has to flow over, what does it say here? All the hair and skin. All the hair and skin. Okay, this means that the full length of every single hair on your body, the water needs to flow over it. Okay, ghusl is not like wudu. In wudu, we said if your beard is long and thick, that the man doesn't need to wash the inside. That when he washes the face, he can just wash the outside of the beard, the front of the beard, and that's enough. In ghusl, that's not enough. It doesn't matter how long your hair is, doesn't matter how thick your hair is, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You have to wash the entire length of every single hair on your body. And you have to wash every bit of skin on your body, meaning the purifying water has to flow over all of your skin and all of your hair. Okay? But when we say skin and hair, what we mean is the outside of your body. The outside of your body. Okay? We're not saying that you have to put flowing water inside your mouth or inside your nose. Okay, we're not saying you have to put it inside any other opening you may have. No, it's the outside part of your body. That is what needs to be washed. The part of your ear that your index finger can reach, like the depth of the ear canal that your index finger can reach, all of that is considered to be the outside of your body. So when you wash your ear, you need to make sure that the water goes in there. It doesn't have to go deep in, but it has to at least wash as far in as your finger can reach, your index finger can reach. This can pose a problem when you're fasting. And Ramadan is just a little bit over a month away. So we're going to be fasting soon. So I'm going to bring this up now because it's relevant. I strongly recommend those of you who want to make a ghusl or take a shower during Ramadan to do so during the night. Do so before Fajr time. That way you don't have to worry about if the water goes deep in your ear or not. But if you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a ghusl and the time for fasting has already started, in this case, you need to be very careful, because the water of your ghusl, in order for your ghusl to be valid, the water has to go into your ear to the point that your index finger can reach. Up until that point has to be washed. But if the water goes deeper in than that point, it will break your fast. Okay, I'm going to say it again. The water must reach as far into the ear canal as your index finger can reach. But if the water goes farther in than that, then it will break your fast. So you need to be very careful. My recommendation to you if you need to make a ghusl while fasting is to take your hand, fill it with water, and wash your ear by dipping your head into your hand. Just kind of like hold your hand sideways and dip your ear into the hand, such that the water in your hand will go up into, your ear will go down and the water will reach where it needs to reach as far as the ear canal is concerned without going deeper in. Then you do the same thing on the other side. And that's how you do it without breaking your fast. But please make every attempt, if you're fasting, to make your ghusl before the fasting time begins. He then says, and it is obligatory to combine the intention with washing the first part of the body. What does he mean there? What he means is the beginning of your ghusl, the beginning of you washing your body, and the intention have to happen at the same time. Okay? What do I mean by that in more detail? What I mean is, if you make the intention in your heart before you start making the ghusl, and the intention is still there, meaning it's still at the front of your mind that this is your intention, well then, as soon as the water touches any part of your body, your ghusl has begun, because you had the intention in your heart when the water first touched your body. Okay, and then after that, you just continue washing the rest of your body as part of your ghusl. Or if you want, you can try to time it so that the moment the water touches your body is also the moment you make the intention, which is difficult to do and usually leads to waswas. So I don't think you should try to time it in that fashion. Instead, you should just make the intention before you start by, a few moments, and just hold it in your heart until you start washing yourself. This is how I recommend you do it. But you should also understand from this sentence that if you started washing yourself, say you got in the shower, you got under it, the water's running on your hair, the water's going down your body, and after all of that water got on your body, then you made the intention to make ghusl. If this happens, then what it means is your ghusl didn't begin until you made the intention. And everything that you washed before you made the intention needs to get washed over again. Why? Because it wasn't part of a ghusl. Your ghusl didn't start until the intention was there. Okay, that's what it means when it says the intention and the washing, you have to combine them. They have to happen at the same time. Okay? At whatever moment you are washing and you have the intention in your heart, that's the moment when the ghusl begins. So if you made the intention in the middle of your shower, then the ghusl began at that moment, and you have to repeat everything you washed beforehand. And if you made the intention before you started washing yourself, well, as long as the intention is still in your heart when you begin washing yourself, then in that case, your ghusl began when the water touched you, because that's the moment when you were both washing your body and having the intention in your heart. Inshallah, that is understood. After that, he goes on to mention some of the recommended acts of ghusl. I remind you, the recommended acts are called what? Sunnahs. Sunnahs. Now, this is something that some people don't understand. There are some people who they've been taught that you have to follow the sunnah. You have to follow the sunnah. They say, we Muslims, we follow Quran and sunnah. You know, and some people, like, Islam was presented to them in such a way that they ended up believing that it's an obligation to follow the sunnah. And so they don't even understand that when you read the books of Islamic law, when something is described as being sunnah, it means it's optional. It doesn't mean it's obligatory. It means it's optional for you to do. But it is recommended. Okay, it's rewardable. In the subject of fiqh, when we say something is sunnah, what we mean by that is performing that action earns you reward, but neglecting that action does not put you in risk of punishment. Okay, that's what we mean when something is sunnah. You're rewarded for doing it and not threatened with punishment for leaving it out. The author, may Allah have mercy on him, says its recommended acts are: number one, facing the Qibla. So among the sunnahs of ghusl is to be facing the Qibla when you make your ghusl. Number two, naming. When he says naming, what he means is to say Bismillah. And what's better even than saying Bismillah is to say the Basmala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. But either of these, even if all you said was Bismillah, this would still fulfill the basic sunnah. So you would still get the reward of the sunnah simply by saying Bismillah. And you want to say Bismillah at the outset of the ghusl, when you're beginning it. Okay, and similar to what we said in wudu, if you forget to say it at the outset and you remember in the middle of your ghusl, then you say Bismillahi awwalahu wa akhirah. And if you make your ghusl in the same place where people use the restroom, then it's better if you do not say this. Number three, washing the hands. Okay, so the author here, what he's doing is he's mentioning sunnahs in order, the order in which you should do them. So first you face the Qibla, okay? And then you say Bismillah as you first begin washing your body and you have the intention in your heart. Now, what's not clear here is which part of the body should you wash first? Okay? Which part of the body should you be washing, according to the sunnah, when you say your basmala? What's the first part of the body that you should wash? You should begin by washing your privates. Okay, the first place of the body that you should wash in your ghusl is the private parts in the front and in the back. So that's what you want to be washing when you say your tasmiyah, when you say Bismillah. And then after that, you want to do what it says here, number three, washing the hands. When he says washing the hands, he means up to the wrist. He means up to the wrist. Number four, removal of any harm. Okay, when he says harm, this is the way he's translating the Arabic word adha, which does mean harm, but in certain instances it just means like things that are annoyances. Like if you might have some snot on your body or semen on your body or some kind of what they call najasa hukmiya, like a part of your body that has the ruling that is contaminated with najasa, even though there actually isn't any physical najasa there. If you have a situation like this, that's what they mean by harm. They don't mean that it's like physically harming you, but just that you have, something that is something on your body that you want to remove. Okay, you want to do that next after washing the hands. And then number 5, perform a wudu according to all the rules of wudu that we learned. Okay, including washing your hands to the wrist 3 times, washing out your mouth and nose 3 times each, washing your face 3 times, starting from the top into, putting your fingers in the beard, etc. Everything we talked about in the wudu section, you want to do all of that. Then after that, it says to follow the areas of folds. What he means is after that, you go to the parts of the body where there may be folds in your skin, such as if a person is obese, their stomach might have rolls. There might be rolls of fat in their stomach. So the next thing you want to do is you want to wash what's underneath those folds. Okay, you want to wash the places that are difficult to reach. So you get under those folds. Okay, this also includes washing the ears because there's lots of folds in the ear. You want to get those places. Also below the ear, like the area behind the ear right here, this is a place that you want to get during this stage of the ghusl. Under your nose. Okay, any place where it may be difficult for you to reach what's under it. So the armpits, the area beneath the breasts, these are places that are hard to reach because the skin may be folded in that place. So you want to do that after the wudu. Then you want to take number 7. It says to interlace the roots of the hair thrice with one's wet hand. So you want to wet your hands, and then you want to take your hands and stick it into your hair. Stick your fingers into the hair and move it around. You want to do that 3 times with hands that are wet. Then with number 8, you pour some water over your head. Okay, you want to pour water over your head and start moving that water around, pushing the water with your hands in the direction you want it to go so that the water will flow over everything on your head and neck. It says, then one's right half. So after you pour water on your head, the next place you want to pour water is on the right side of your body by doing the right front first. So you pour the water on the right side, like on the shoulder, and you can push the water down, just pushing it downwards across your whole body, all the way down to your feet, so that you wash the right front of your body. And then you pour on the right back of your body, and you push the water down the back side of your body until you've washed the right side of your body in the back. Then he says, then the left. So after you've washed the right side of your body, front and then back, next you're going to do the left side of your body, front first and then back. And then he says to repeat thrice. Okay, so you're gonna make a ghusl. It's sunnah to do your ghusl 3 times. Number 10, it says to rub every time. By rubbing, what he means is you don't simply like get in the shower and just let the water flow all over your body. You want to actually be rubbing your body with your hand, with a cloth, with something, so that all of the places that you want to wash, you rub, you're physically rubbing all of those places. Okay, such that everywhere that needs to be washed, which is your whole body, every place gets rubbed. In some madhabs, that's required for your ghusl to be valid. And number 11 is he says to accompany the acts with the intention. What he means by that is to maintain your intention. So your ghusl is valid as long as the intention was in your heart at the moment you started washing some part of your body. But among the sunnahs is to keep the intention in your heart for the duration of the ghusl until it's completed. This is also one of the sunnahs of ghusl. After that, he starts a new paragraph, and I do not understand why he starts a new paragraph, because the things in this paragraph are actually a continuation of that list. So number 12, okay, he says the amount of water shouldn't be less than 1 sa. But I would have just said number 12, to not use less than 1 sa. So among the recommended actions of ghusl is to not use less than 1 sa of water. I remind you that the amount of water that an average sized man can hold if he puts his 2 hands together like this, that amount of water is called a mud. 4 muds equals 1 sa. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to perform ghusl with 1 sa of water. So among the sunnahs is for us not to use less than that. Number 13, for the woman who isn't, he says, for the woman who isn't in the period of remorse for the death of her husband, which again, I have a slight issue with the way it's translated here, because the mourning period that a woman goes through when her husband dies, it's not remorse. I don't know why he said remorse here. I would have translated this as number 13, for the woman who isn't in a waiting period following the death of her husband. Okay, for the woman who isn't in a waiting period following the death of her husband, to follow, he says, the path of the blood. Again, what I would have preferred to translate this as to follow after the blood with musk, perfume, or mud. Okay, so number 13 here, the 13th sunnah, is that if a woman just completed her menstruation or her postnatal bleeding, and that's why she's making a ghusl, because her menstruation or postnatal bleeding just ended, the sunnah for her is to put musk, perfume, or mud onto her private area following the ghusl. This is a sunnah. Okay, and if you want to keep your wudu, then just apply it using cotton or something, so you don't actually touch your privates with the inside part of your hand, because that would break wudu. Instead, just use cotton balls or something, and you rub the musk or the perfume or the mud over all of the places that are obligatory to be washed in the ghusl. This is a sunnah for the woman who what? Just made a ghusl because her menstruation ended, or just made a ghusl because her postnatal bleeding ended. But the woman who is in a waiting period because her husband died, she does not do this. It's haram for the woman who is mourning the death of the husband, which is something, if all you ladies out there, if your husband dies, then there's a waiting period of 4 months and 10 days before you can remarry. And during that waiting period, there are special rules that apply to you because you are mourning your husband. And part of those special rules are that the woman in this type of waiting period, cannot wear perfume. So it's not sunnah for her after her ghusl to apply the perfume in this way. But for the other women, it is sunnah for them to do it. It says if she can't find this, meaning if she can't find any musk or perfume or mud to put on her privates following her ghusl, then you just use water. Number 14. Okay, remember, the book is printed with this simply as a paragraph, but it's continuing the list of things that are recommended. Number 14, to not wash after ejaculation of sexual fluid before urinating. Okay, he wrote one shouldn't wash after ejaculation of sexual fluid before urinating, but I think a more direct translation would simply be to not wash after ejaculation of sexual fluid before urinating. And remember, when he says wash, what he's actually translating here is the word ghusl. Okay, so what he's saying is, if you released sexual fluid, the recommendation is that you not perform your ghusl until after you've urinated. Okay, and the reason there is that urination, that there might be some sexual fluid still inside your body that didn't come out, sexual fluid that might just kind of drip out a little bit later. And so if you make your ghusl right away, and after your ghusl, another drop or two of sexual fluid seeps out after the ghusl, then guess what? Now you have to make ghusl all over again. Because one of the causes that necessitates a ghusl is if sexual fluid comes out. And yes, that means even if it's the sexual fluid from before your ghusl, if it didn't come out until after your ghusl, then you need to make a new ghusl. Okay, so one thing that you can do to reduce the likelihood of that is to urinate, because the urine will push out whatever is left of the semen or sexual fluid inside your body. The urine will push it out. Okay, so it's rare if someone urinates and then makes a ghusl. It's rare after that for him to have another drop of sexual fluid come out. Number 15, it is recommended to say the narrated remembrance after finishing. So among the sunnahs of ghusl is to say the dhikr, the same dhikr which is sunnah to say after wudu. That is to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma ij'alni min at-tawabin wa ij'alni min al-mutatahhirin. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. And then number 16, it is recommended to abstain from others' help. So just like we said in wudu, it's one thing if you require help, like if you had both your arms cut off, you don't have any arms, so you need help. You need someone to pour the water on you for your ghusl and for your wudu, because you can't do it yourself. That's one thing. But if you are capable of getting water in your own hand and putting it on your own face for wudu, or getting water in your own hand and pouring it on your own head for ghusl, then in that case, the sunnah is for you to do it yourself, not to have someone else pour the water on you for you. MashaAllah. I see a comment where someone asked about mud. Yeah, mud is one of the options. So after you make your ghusl from bleeding, from menstruation or postnatal bleeding, it's sunnah for you to apply something that will, freshen you up, I guess. So musk, because of its nice strong smell, It's recommended. If you don't have musk, then one of the other perfumes is recommended. If you don't have that, then use mud. I mean, mud is something that people have used for many centuries to clean themselves. There are people who pay good money to go to a spa and have a mud bath. Okay, mud is something that, it has some cleaning properties, mashallah, and it's one of the things that's recommended for the woman to use if she made a ghusl due to her bleeding. Yes. Then the author, may Allah have mercy on him, continues, and he begins mentioning some of the things that are disliked to do when you're making ghusl. He says, may Allah have mercy on him, it is disliked to be extravagant in pouring water. It is disliked to be extravagant in pouring water. Okay, what he means here is it's disliked to waste the water, to use more water than you need. Okay, so you don't want to just like have water going, like you turn on the faucet and the water's pouring out, and you put your hands under it like this, then you pull your hands out and you put it on your head, and now you're wiping your head, but the water in the faucet is just going, and you're not even using it. It's not even touching your body. It's going straight down the drain. This is what's meant by being extravagant, like you wasting the water. We're not talking about someone who has the shower going and their body is under the shower. Even though in this case, they're using more water than they need to use, at least the water is flowing on their body. Like they are benefiting from the water. Okay, it is cleaning them. That's not the same thing as what they're saying when they say it's disliked. They mean to waste the water, to have the water going down with no benefit. He says, and to wash. And again, by wash, he means to make ghusl. He says, and to make ghusl or make wudu in stagnant water. Okay, so among the disliked things in ghusl is to use stagnant water to make your wudu. By stagnant water, we mean water that's still. Okay, so like you go to a bog, for example, where there's like a small little pond and the water isn't moving, it gets very nasty after a while. It's disliked to use that water for ghusl, but if that's the only water you have, it is valid to use that water. And it's invalid for you to go make tayammum as long as that water is there. He says, may Allah have mercy on him, it is also disliked to increase more than 3 times. What he means by that is to do things more than 3 times. So just like in wudu, the sunnah is to wash your face 3 times. And it's disliked to do more than 3 times. Okay? It's sunnah in wudu to wash your hand 3 times. It's disliked to do more than 3 times. Well, in ghusl, it's the same. It's sunnah to wash your entire body 3 times. And it's disliked to do it more than 3 times. Next one. It's disliked to leave out mouth rinsing. Okay, he says to leave mouth rinsing, but what he means is to choose not to do it. Okay, so it's disliked for you to make ghusl and to not rinse out your mouth and to rinse out your nose in the same way that we do in wudu, how you put water in your mouth, rinse it around and spit it out. Put water in your nose, you sniff it up and then blow it out. These things are sunnah in your wudu, and they're also sunnah in the ghusl. Again, this is for someone who's not fasting. If you are fasting, then you want to just put water in your mouth and spit it out, put water in your nose and blow it out without rinsing it around vigorously in the mouth and without sniffing it up in the nose, because you run the risk of breaking your fast if you do that. But he says among the disliked things in ghusl is to not rinse out your mouth and not to rinse out your nose. Then he says, it is disliked for the one with janaba again, he translated janaba as major ritual impurity, but the actual text here specifies janaba, not all the types of ritual impurity, but janaba in particular. Said it's disliked for the one with janaba to eat, drink, sleep. He says and, but I think I would have chosen or as a translation here, or have intercourse before washing one's private parts and making wudu. Okay, so what he's saying here is if a person has janaba, say a man and a woman had marital relations, now they're tired and they want to sleep. Okay, it's disliked for you to go straight to sleep. You should at least go wash your privates and make a wudu before you go to sleep. Even if you don't do the entire ghusl, at least wash the privates and make wudu before you sleep. And the same is true if you intend to eat after marital relations, or drink after marital relations, or even if you want to have another round of marital relations. Before you do any of those things, it's recommended that you first wash your privates and make wudu. And then after that, it would not be disliked for you to eat or drink or sleep or have more marital relations. It says, as does the same apply for the woman who has stopped menstruating or bleeding postnatal. So also the woman who is not in a state of janaba, but she's in a state, she has major hadath because of menstruation or postnatal bleeding. Once that bleeding has stopped, it's disliked for her to eat or drink or sleep before first washing her privates and making a wudu. And it's actually haram for her, the one who just finished menstruating and postnatal bleeding, it's haram for her to have marital relations until after her ghusl. MashaAllah. I'll stop there. We'll talk about najas, inshallah. The list of things that are najas next week. If you have questions, pop them in the box and I will respond, inshallah ta'ala. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh to those who salamed me. Someone asked about a bath. If bath water is considered stagnant water. I don't understand the stagnant water thing to refer to a bath. I don't understand it as meaning it's disliked to make ghusl in a bathtub. But generally speaking, I don't recommend a bath as a form of ghusl. Because it's going to be extremely difficult to do it properly. It's going to be extremely difficult to do it properly unless you have a bath that's very large. Like if your bath is so big that it has 2 qullas of water, then yes, you can do it. Most bathtubs are not that large. And so what happens is if you get in the bathtub, say you step into water with your feet first, then the major hadath gets lifted from, your feet, your ankles, and however much of your legs went into the water. And then that water becomes used water because it lifted hadath from your feet. And so then when you sit down in the tub and the rest of your body goes into the tub, the hadath doesn't get lifted from the rest of your body because that water is now used water. It's no longer purifying. So I do not recommend a bath as a way to make a ghusl. Okay, if all you have is a bathtub, then I definitely recommend buckets. Buckets or cups, or even just using your hands turn on the faucet, put some water in your hand, put it on yourself, rub it around, and, push the water down until you've washed your whole body. Are there any other questions? I think that's all I see here. All right. Well, there aren't any questions, so I'll stop here. Let's say La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Rabbi ighfir li wa lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. Rabbi ighfir li wa lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. Rabbi ighfir li wa lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. Someone asked, can you just let the bath water run? I assume you mean that you don't block up the drain, just turn the water on and let the water just keep going the whole time. I'm not understanding how that would work, because the bathtub probably wouldn't fill up. And so if it's just like a little tiny bit of water at the bottom of the bathtub, then I don't think that's what the person was talking about when he was talking about taking a bath. But yeah, you can leave the water running and take little handfuls of water until you've rubbed it all over your body. That's fine. The issue with the bathtub isn't the water being stagnant. The issue with the bathtub is the water being used. You see, once you use water to lift hadath from some part of your body, you can't use that same water again to lift hadath somewhere else. Okay, so like if you put water on your head and you can rub the water down your body, it's lifting hadath the whole time that it stays on your body. But once it separates from your body, it's now used water. But in the example of a bathtub, you have a container of water and you stepped into it. So now the whole lot of water is used water. It's been used to lift hadath. So then when you put a new part of your body in the water, that new part, even though it just got wet, it wasn't part of the ghusl. This new part of the body that went in the water didn't have the hadath removed from it because the water is no longer purifying. That's why I'm saying just do it in shower form, or better yet, do it with handfuls of water or cups of water or small buckets of water, because then you'll use less water and you'll be closer to the way that the Prophet did it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Other than that, I'll see you all next week, insha'Allah ta'ala. Until then, I ask that Allah keep you all safe. May Allah bless you and grant you reward for your deeds. For those who are in the zones affected by the fire, I ask that Allah give you patience, that Allah grant you your needs, and that Allah lift your hardships. And I ask that Allah grant you security, and that Allah grant you some measure of health and some measure of wealth through these difficult times. May Allah make it easy for you. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. I'll see you next week, insha'Allah ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.